Okay, I'll ask the question. Do you think Atticus is going to be shunned by his family for defending heroes?
I feel like he already has a little bit. Like maybe not fully cut out, but they definitely don't approve of what he's doing.
Yeah, it seemed like the family was really didn't really approve of what he was doing, but that when he had the private conversation with Uncle Jack, he didn't really he actually talked to him about it and didn't seem that mad about the whole thing. So it's well, maybe they just don't like it, but they're just letting it happen. They're not gonna shut him or anything over it.
I mean, it kind of seems like he's already in a bad situation as it is. So with this, it's not really helping the situation out for him.
And it seems like they might be more worried about appearances than the actual what he's doing.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of they're not disagreeing with what he's doing exactly. They're kind of but your reputation is kind of gonna get ruined, I think.
Yeah, like Joe said, Uncle Jack seemed kind of chill with the whole thing. But I think the more outer circle of the family is going to be a little bit more against it.
I think that comes what Kate and Joe and Mitchell said comes back into play a little bit when how they all seem to criticize how Atticus is raising his kids, specifically how Scout dresses. They care about the appearance of her being a lady. Unless she is.
I agree with that. But at the same time, they don't really have a motherly figure to show her, hey, you're not supposed to wear pants. But I don't think Scout really cares because she's like, I'm gonna wear pants if I want to, even though that's not what you're supposed to do. Which also comes back to defending Tom Robinson, and that's not what he's supposed to do, even though he's doing it anyway.
I mean, another question we could probably ask in a whole new direction would be how did Miss DeVos, or I don't know how to say her name, how did her death affect Scout?
I feel like overall, I kind of picture Nathan because it doesn't sound like there's a lot of kids. It's kind of like a live-in retirement community almost, where it's they're still involved but they're not. But I feel like they're just surrounded by old people that are just hanging on at this point. And I feel like this is one of their first few deaths because it's obviously they're surrounded by minor deaths. For God's sakes, their dad pretty much shot a dog in front of them. But this I feel was just slow, and I feel like it wasn't the death that affected her, but the reasoning behind it, because she realized that she wasn't thinking. When they were over there, she just wasn't thinking ahead. She was just angry.
I think that after Atticus told Jem and Scout that she was an addict, that she kind of felt a little remorse since she's kind of dying alone with Jessie, her mate or whatever. So I think she just felt that she would much rather live on her life throughout in a better manner than what Mrs. DeVos did.
I think Scout also gained some respect for her when she wrote that because she maybe understood a bit more why she was so angry all the time because she was dealing with that pain and addiction.
And also, I think connections to people are very important for Scout. She works really hard to, well, not really, but she wants to understand people and be liked, kind of.
Other than when she decides to punch her in the face,
Other than
defending
her connection to her father.
He had to come to
I feel like throughout the whole book so far, Scout has really been defending her family.
Yeah.
She doesn't care about her reputation. She just wants to make sure that everybody around her is okay. And so by getting in fights, and defending her father, she's kind of saying, this is who we are, you need to leave us alone. And she's kind of trying to scare them all off, essentially.
It was just kind of like you were saying earlier, how she doesn't have a mother figure to look up to, be a role model, so to be a woman. So she kind of has taken on like a more like a stronger and like dominant like role, trying to show like this is our family, compared to if she's just being quiet and just letting it happen to their family so largely.
But it also seems like it's just kind of her personality. Like she would want to be quiet. I think even if she had a figure in her life that was showing her she could be that.
Yeah, I kind of agree with like both those statements. Without her motherly figure, she's really close to her father and her brother, and she like more like Matthew said, the stronger figure, and kind of wants to defend them more. Doesn't have the no, that's not right. Kind of just.
I'm going to interject here for a second. You guys are completely dismissing Cal. Wouldn't Cal be a mother figure?
So Cal's not telling her how she has to dress and how she should act necessarily. She's telling
Sure.
her
She
about
does.
manners.
You sure?
But she doesn't tell her that she can't fight.
I feel like we're trying to think of a loving mother figure.
Yeah.
And Cal is definitely a loving figure, but she's not being described as Scout as she would her mother. And because we also hear about Jem, and I feel like we just shouldn't, because there's obviously people in our life that are trying to make her something that their society would accept. But I feel like overall, she's too much like her father. They're two sides to the same coin, in which he cares about their appearances, and she does too. She just goes about it in a questionable manner.
I don't know, the thing about Cal is I think she just doesn't, same as Atticus, she just doesn't really care about, she doesn't really care if she looks like a lady or if she acts like a, sort of like a girl, because I think she's okay with Scout being like her father and being kind of more standoffish to people who don't like say mean things about their parents, even if she doesn't know what they mean.
Even if she had a mother in her life, I don't really think that the specific role of a motherly figure is to force a girl to be girly and such. I don't think that's like, yeah. Okay, so now you guys are going to coach each other, so go ahead and ask questions.
It's about not being
For Scout,
Why are we having a hard time with this? Do both. I thought it was good to touch on that. It's not one of the gold girl
We're all making rope character.
Identify strengths in rope. I don't know what I would just try maybe throw in I've heard you say it twice. That's what even already looks like. Both of you have heard it.
I'm just trying to fit in. Well, my question will fit in well because it's all that Adam is going to be like Aaron.
About 30 more seconds. Go ahead and wrap it up.
It did say this. Your high five.
We're gonna be. I'm just following the directions. I love how it's not even like you're here to emotionally support me. Now you're just following directions. Do you really? I'm like really.
Like last year, you talked about like issues and stuff. You just like try to speak.
Coaching on Joseph.
All right. We're going to start the second round of 7 minutes, so go ahead and turn around and face the inner circle.
Joey, to your left, or to your right.
Gosh. Come on, Joe.
All right, go ahead and begin.
I have a question question. Do you think that there was a purpose to Atticus allowing Scout to hear his conversation with Uncle Jack in the living room?
I feel like it's an apology for what happened almost, because like we've heard about Jack punishing her without going about Atticus's our usual parents' house. It's very, very fair. It's like almost concerning how fair that household is.
Oh, sorry, that was a comment. On the other hand, it could also, or not really a different hand, but it could also be, I think he's trying to prepare his kids for what's maybe going to come if he continues with the Tom Robinson case. And that's maybe just, like, he knew he was there, he wanted her to hear it, he's trying to get her ready and for her to know what's coming.
Yeah, because Atticus has always just been so good about being honest with them and telling them what's going on. I think he just kind of wants them to know what the consequences are going to be of this and what's going to happen.
Yeah, like he kind of said sort of like the worst is yet to come almost for them, which you can kind of see why based on the community's reaction so far.
It really shows that he cares, trying to, not like actually going to her face and telling her what's going on, but rather trying to slowly hint at, what's going to happen rather than just all of a sudden it hits their family hard. And, it shows that he's really caring about her.
It's about to be very hard for them because already Atticus is probably being criticized for being a single dad. And so having this on top of that, I think he just really needs to secure his bond with his children, because that's a really important part of what he's trying to do, is make sure that they never feel unloved or hated for any reason.
Going back to what Haley said at first, where their house is very fair, I feel like that comes with him being a lawyer and wanting to hear, you have to hear both sides of the case to be able to make a decision. So I think that that's the reason that he gives both of them fair opportunities to speak and stuff.
One thing I noticed about the Finch family is that they're more modern than the rest of the town. Like Atticus, he gets criticized for being a single dad, like Shayla said, and it's more so because of what Scout is wearing. She's bringing more modern into women's fashion for this town. And Atticus, bless you, Atticus is starting to defend blacks for something that they didn't do, and that's even bringing more modern into this town with this civil rights movement going on in a little bit.
Some of that could come from, I think most of the other families in the town are either very elderly or they've been in the town for a lot of generations. But what I understood was that Atticus was the first in his family to move there, so he was a new face, a new family with different views.
Yeah, it's still weird because it's like this is pretty much one of my questions about his past. It's like we hear of him now being so modern, but we also know about some things about his past, like how apparently he was like a sharpshooter and a little bit of a redneck. Do we think that he has progressed as greatly as his kids might?
I think he just saw the world, like especially as a lawyer, I think he got a different perspective. He saw that something needed to change, and since it's like down in the South, those were who were the Confederates, and people already said that it's like everybody's old in that town, so they all have the old like Confederate type of views towards blacks and all kinds of other stuff as well. And it just Atticus has kind of moved on. He's kind of matured into the new way of thinking, and I think that's why he was already taking the case against the people for being unfair to the blacks.
I think a lot of it, sorry.
Along with what Joey was saying, in the northern United States, it was a little bit more fair, but it definitely wasn't completely fair. So I think he was also integrating northern law and movement into the South, so then it's going to start more of a change.
Hands down, everyone's racist right now. Some people are a little bit less racist than others. It's fine.
I think Atticus is probably just more educated than most people in
all these people are old, and most of the time they fall back into like the abuse that they were raised on when you get older. Do we think, I'm asking it as if I haven't read the second book, that he'll ever fall back into the ways that like other people in the community think in this book, like questionably? Do you see him being racist?
I feel like he'll hold his own. I think he kind of has his own set of views, and I feel like he's just going to keep them going. I mean, he's new, but like not new, but he's the first part of his family generation to actually live there. And since he brought in new ideals and beliefs to the town, I feel like I even stated how the people there kind of all share similar ideas and how they all think that. I feel like he may not be as progressive about his ideas, but I feel like he's still going to hold the key beliefs.
Right, like kind of like with how keep mentioning that like older people's views rub off onto their kids. Maybe like it'll start rubbing off onto the younger kids around the town after all the older people are gone, and hopefully he'll hold on to his views and things will change.
Especially Scout gets put into their head by fighting them and shit they do.
Yeah.
Just like walks up to them, it's like, what do you think?
Going along with the conversation, in what ways do you think the case will change the family's lives?
It may draw some negative attention towards them. People, especially where they live, may completely neglect them because of what they believe and how they want to support blacks. They may be even discriminated or treated the same, which can definitely make life a lot harder for them.
All right, so group 2, you guys are going to switch spots now, and group 2 will start their 7 minutes.
Yeah, dude.
Watch out for Margaret. Yeah, I know it. Are you going to use paper?
Okay, make sure the people that are going to be coaching, make sure that you guys are writing things down. Oh, I know.
I was like, what?
Thank you for reminding me.
The trash can references.
Ready, everyone?
Of course it is. You weren't there then.
Yeah, because the school.
You were just not smart enough, Matthew. I'm sorry.
One and only system. My kid, if I wasn't understanding error
So you're dumbed down? We spoke
All right, go ahead and get started.
What do you think the purpose of the mad dog scene was, and what do you think it shows about Atticus?
Like Joey said, I think it shows that he used to be a little bit of a redneck, and going to law school, I feel like that changed him and made him more educated and less willing to accept the redneck beliefs.
I think it just kind of shows like we're seeing more about Atticus because we didn't know much about him as a character before. And earlier it talked about how the scout wasn't really proud of her father. She felt like all the other townsmen were a lot better because they all did like hunting and stuff. Her dad never did that. He was old for her age group. So I think it just shows how like she became a little more proud of him for that. She didn't know that about him.
Why do you think he would like try to hide it from us? He has like his past, like he doesn't really talk about it that much, and when other people start to talk about it, he doesn't like when they do that.
I think that may have to do with him moving his kids to this new town, and he's trying to start a new life, so maybe this is something that kind of connects to him in the past. Because now he's taking up this new court case. It's like he's kind of starting up like all these new things in his life, and he obviously supports them. But also in that way, he's kind of hiding his kids from certain things and trying to make a difference at the same time.
To add on to that, another thing is that like they kind of talked about the modernist style that they have. I feel like that kind of reflects it, because if he was like a hunter and like everyone else, I feel like that wouldn't really separate them from the rest. And that's kind of what this book is about, because they're a very unique family at this time, and they're very getting into the style that we are in right now. So I feel like if he hunted, that would kind of change the direction of the book, because that'd make him like other fathers, and he might take up other recreations that wouldn't really separate him from the rest.
I agree with Kaden. I think like the way that their family goes about life is a lot different than other people in the town. Like Atticus is a lawyer. A lot of people don't really have somebody like Atticus who kind of looks after the kids and everything else. I think he kind of wanted to set a new example for the kids.
Do you think that anyone's actually gonna like follow what he's doing as this town seems like they're kind of stuck on their same ideals of like believing in these certain things that they don't necessarily think that we don't think are right, but like they do?
I kind of feel like what they were talking about earlier, the older generation, they're kind of set in their ways. It's a lot of older people in that town, and then once they like move on or something, then you're gonna have newer people, and then it's easier to influence a young person's mind. So like you could kind of get your ideals to them like that.
And I feel like more as this case gets brought up throughout the book, they're going to start seeing more politically what each other believes, and the older people are going to be set on what they've believed for a long time, and maybe it'll bring up a different way through the kids.
Yeah, and I feel like it's really interesting how Atticus is teaching like Scout and Jen like these different morals, such as like silent courage or something like that, like how to handle yourself when like someone's calling your dad names like that, and Scout had to like hold herself back from fighting, and I think he's trying to like prepare them, like the last group said, for what's gonna come and all like the verbal abuse they'll get. And I was wondering, how would you guys think you would handle yourselves if someone called about father or your family and things like that?
I don't really relate to this question.
I don't think I'd be too happy about it. Pretty frustrating.
I would definitely almost act as Scout did, but it may have been more accepted now than it would have been accepted at the time.
I also think that, like going off of what you said before you asked that question, was I think that Atticus's way of parenting is actually really paying off, and I think it's preparing the kids for like what's going to happen in the rest of the book. But I also think that it's kind of weird how everyone else in the neighborhood is kind of, you know, shaming them for Atticus's way of parenting. Like they go up to the kids and they're like, he lets you run around like this. I just think it's kind of strange.
I liked what you, in the previous session, they were talking about Capernia, or Cal, as Mrs. Soffer calls her. We were talking about how, Scout didn't really have a mother figure, but then Miss Sotman brought up Capernia. But the thing is, Scout really doesn't care for Capernia. So if the story was narrated from a different character's point of view, would Capernia be a bigger impact on Scout's life?
I feel like she would, because it's from Scout's point of view, and she like doesn't like it that Capernia is like being like telling her the wrong things that she's doing, and he's from like another character's point of view. They would show more of how actually like helping her and being more of a mother figure to her.
I don't know if I quite agree, because I feel like Scout is the only one that has like the strongest relationship with Cal. It might not be that strong, but I think if it was from Jem's perspective, we don't see how much of how Jem relates to Cal. So I feel like if they did the book on his perspective, she wouldn't have as big of a role as she does now in their lives.
I agree with that, and also, since like the book is from Scout's perspective, if it was from someone else's perspective, we wouldn't have a more accurate representation of how Scout felt toward Capernia. So the fact that it's in her perspective, we kind of know the most accurate representation of their relationship.
I just think it might be a little biased because she doesn't seem like she didn't really care for her and like more towards the beginning because she blamed her for some of the stuff that was happening at school and everything.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you're a kid, you think that something's one way when it's actually the other way. So like she might be thinking that Cal's mean and stuff, but she's actually helping her along with the big.
All right, so you guys can turn around and go.
I'm happy that you guys are expanding the narrative. That's like
that was kind of my question. So I well, the title is like mentioned in this section. I feel like I should say something about that, but it doesn't really fit in. It's not that's how I interpret it. That everybody else interprets it. Someone's like, oh, I bring up for like, I can't remember if I feel like sometimes. Atticus trying to show like it's I thought about it. Some different some people used to tear that down. Yeah. But I don't know if I'll let that factor because it's all about Atticus.
We love Atticus. We're here for Atticus.
And I read it 2 days ago, so I'm kind of
struggling heartbroken.
I read it like 2 days ago, so when people are talking, then things come up in my head.
Someone. No idea exactly.
But they're going to like, there's this proof that they can't that he's
other than
he's charged, but he doesn't take it.
Talk about shorter Matthew. Short Matthew.
That's not the case.
Alright, go ahead and begin. So in the beginning of the book, we see Scout's and Jem's childhood as being really carefree. But now it's slowly starting to transition into like the court case taking over the plot. So what do you guys think about their transition from like their carefree childhood to like the real world and racism and segregation?
I feel like other people's opinions are going to like change the way that they act outside their house, and maybe Atticus will like talk to them about that. I'm not really sure what he's going to do, but there'll be some sort of change because they seem so like innocent, and I feel like they're going to get kind of an idea of what the real world's like. So
I agree with Kendall. I think that like it's about to start part 2. I feel like this part is going to be all about racism and how things are and how everybody, like all the kids are going to see what it's actually like out there and how a lawyer actually has to deal with all this criticism and things that Atticus has to do in order to stand up for what's right.
And as Kenzie said at the beginning of the book, they were talking about like how they play outside and just be like carefree. But as we continue reading in the book, Atticus shows more about what's really going on, especially like as the case gets brought up. So I feel like they're getting more aware of what's actually happening and less carefree about everything.
Yeah, I think he's gonna try to shelter more like as they get towards the case, because I feel like as it like starts to become prevalent and closer to the date of the trial, the kids are probably gonna experience like people like trying to like talk to them about it, or like saying mean things about their dad even more.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I'm like interested to see how Atticus handles all that, and like how he's gonna treat them, and like if his parenting will stay the same, and he's still gonna like instill the same morals and stuff, or if he's gonna try and shelter him and keep him away from that for as long as possible.
I feel like he's not gonna shelter them. I feel like he's more gonna prepare them so that they can take it. Because if he shelters them now, what happens when they move away? Because then they're not gonna be ready. He just doesn't seem like that kind of parent to me. I feel like he's gonna try and prepare them for the future.
I agree with that because he already tries to teach them about racism and like what's going on in sort of a sheltered manner, but he's still teaching them. So I feel like if he just sheltered them after the court case, that kind of neglects all the stuff he's done previously in the book.
Yeah, I agree with that because he's really like letting them kind of do their own thing. I think if he just kind of shelters them from this whole entire thing, they won't really learn anything. That's kind of like Atticus' big thing is he wants them to be able to like make their own decisions in life by protecting them, not really letting them have any input. I don't think it'll let them kind of like grow away from just not really having any responsibilities.
I think Scout might change a little bit because she already kind of did. Like the little girl at school who told her that, or said something mean to her, she was kind of angry about that. She seemed a little upset, and she seemed a little upset toward Atticus because if Atticus wouldn't have taken the new client on, then it probably wouldn't have happened. She wouldn't have said that.
I feel like as Scout matures more, she's going to understand her father's perspective and more of his morals because she's still pretty young. Like Jem's old enough to understand some of that stuff, but I feel like she just needs to mature more to understand like where he's coming from instead of what other people are saying about him.
Yeah, I agree, because I don't think she quite understands where Atticus is coming from right now. She's always like, I want to fight this, but Atticus is like, no, you can't.
Yeah, and I agree how like she wants to fight and stuff, and I was wondering like how this case will like affect the kids, and like will they like get verbal abuse at school and even from different parents and stuff? Will there be any backlash on like the kids from other kids, or will they not care?
Kind of building off of Zach's question, how do you guys think the whole town of Macomb will act or respond to their entire family? Will it just be the kids at school, or will it be the neighboring people?
I think that it'll be like everyone because like Mrs. DeBruce, I don't remember her name is, like she's already like she like said stuff to them about the case too, so I feel like everyone will kind of like go against them and try to say mean things to them, and then Scout will obviously have to learn how to take it and not watch it.
I feel like the kids are definitely going to be talking to Scout and Jem because like they hear something at home and they want to tell everybody, and then everybody says something that might not be true, but it might also be true. Just kind of so it goes.
Yeah, I feel like it'll be from both sides because we've seen the kids talk about it a little already, but Miss DeBoost was like the first adult to say something to them. But we've seen like other neighbors like try to teach them and talk to them about how they did agree with Atticus's parenting. So I think it'll be from like adults and children.
Going off of the topic with Miss DeBoost, I actually really liked that plot point of where like at first she seemed like really mean and misunderstanding, but then we learned like what was actually going on with that. And I actually have personal experience with that because when my dad and my stepmom got married, my stepmom's like great grandmother, who's like 93, so she still kind of lived in that mindset. Like basically told my dad and me and my brother that we were like infecting her family tree kind of. And it was just funny because like I laugh at it now and I was extremely offended back then, but she just lives in that time and there's no real way to counter it, and there's not like it's not like it's excusable, but it makes sense because she just hasn't progressed, and that's okay.
I think that, go ahead. I was going to say, if Scout and Jim's mother was still alive, do you think he would have taken a case like this? Do you think she would have been okay with it or not?
I feel like we don't really know much about her.
Yeah, we don't really know enough about her mother to see like her views
if she would agree with him on this, if she would allow him to do this.
I feel like just how like persistent Atticus is with telling Scott and stuff like that their mom must have thought the same thing.
Okay, so.
Give us time to fill out.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead and finish filling that out.
So like, what if
Oh, so I am right. Okay.
Yeah. Minus 1,200 layers.
Your 8 plus.
Yep. You'll know. Like you'll know the second she walks in. She missed Julie Myers.
I think honestly, the thing is you're a good conversation. So.
Oh, what? She's making a Venn diagram.
I'll just look more about class.
Should I say my peer or should I say your name? My partner. I'll say my partner.
Oh my God. Wait, you guys play?
Okay, one more minute.
I finally found it because it was so big and barely faded. But I had a question. It was like it was the only thing. I don't know that much. I never made those. Me neither. Kind of like it's called my first, right?
Oh, so through a little bit.
I kind of like it. I really do.
Oh,
I did manage to ask a few questions.
Julia, that's your turkeys are native.
Not in the chair, they're on wheels. I know, I figured that out.
Wait a second, you put your
We love Atticus.
Oh, I had to get dressed in the dark this morning. My light would have turned off.
Okay, you guys, go ahead and stop. And then we're gonna head back to the room and you're gonna finish the exercise. Make sure you turn it in by the end of the class period. And for those of you who need to finish your highlights for the last exercise, just kind of hold tight for a minute and I'll go ahead and pass those back. Okay, so let's make our way back to the
Is that true?
You want to see all the mean things Zach wrote about you?
Oh yeah. Hold on.
Kendall, you're not capable of being mean.
Yeah, I know. You asked me to bring up the garbage.
I know. Kendall could definitely go to her. I believe in her.
Can I take your keys? Thank you.
It's AA1 together. Yeah, AA1. You've been less chipper and cheery. What's going on? You sure? Yeah. Are people leaving you too? No. Have you been blowing up members or anything? No. Are you sure? I feel like you're lying to me. No, I'm not lying. I'm worried about you. Like, you see what I mean? Like last semester you were, and like this semester you're just like.
Well, I just don't really like basketball. just getting in the way of volleyball. Like I'm hardly ever at volleyball anymore, so that kind of sucks.
Oh, well then why are you doing basketball?
Because I thought it was going to be fun, and then it just kind of got in the way of everything. I just don't really like it anymore.
So are you gonna not do it next year then?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why, like, I was worried, I was like, cause you were all excitable and then now you're not, and you're not sitting with your friends anymore and everything else. Oh, okay. Alright. Just checking up on the grades.
Yeah, I'm fine.